Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. A little bit of a different Saturday this early Saturday eve, as I like to resurrect the psychological series because recently I kind of had to let it go for just a little bit because I was like, changing different countries and taking care of all different sorts of businesses. But this is a topic that I'm quite passionate about, and especially with the live streams, I get a really good insight into common issues that I think a lot of people deal with, myself included, of course, in that conversation. And here's a big one, man. Here's a damn big one. Is when people bring up this silly topic, this very, very misleading statistic saying 90% of traders lose everything within 12 months or whatever it ends up being. It might be 99, it might be 85, you don't know. But at the end of the day, what does this really come down towards? People will typically bring this sort of conversation up when they don't have anything better to say, or in a more nefarious sense, when they actually want to stop other people from doing something that they feel like they might have failed at. And really what it comes down to is kind of a three-pronged attack and understanding why people might not be so invested in you, in your success. And the big thing is, and probably the first and foremost, is the less nefarious interpretation of this. People are typically just trying to make conversation, and when they say something like that, like hey man, you shouldn't trade because 90% of people lose everything within the first year or whatever it is. I don't know what the statistic is. They're not invested in you, in your success or failure. They're just trying to make conversation because they probably don't have anything better to say. And when they say something like that, what they're showing is they're just trying to talk. They just want to talk about the subject. They just don't know what to say. And so it can probably rattle some people who don't have as strong of a belief in themselves, or perhaps might be susceptible to those sorts of more demanding and demeaning comments. But at the end of the day, man, when it comes down to statistics, you don't have to be a part of that. And first and foremost, is that statistic even right? I don't know if it's right or wrong, but what I can tell you is that if you're going to use a 90% statistic for success, or just kind of give up because of anything like that, you're never going to be successful at anything, because 90% of people are just not successful at stuff, or 90% of people are not successful at even just one major thing, one major thing that can, actually be a high income skill or something like that, like trading, or, there's plenty of other things, like, I don't know, maybe you want to be a basketball player. How many people fail at that? Definitely more than 90%, right? It's like literally less than 1% who actually even get to play the game at a professional level on any professional major sport. But that's essentially what we're talking about here, is we're talking about getting to a high level skill in anything. It doesn't just mean for trading, it means for anything. So when people bring that sort of thing up, it's like, yes, if that even is true, that applies to essentially everything. So if you go into it with a defeatist mindset like that, you're not going to even try before you get in the game. And of course, at that point in time, you're going to beat the statistic because you're not going to try. The only way that you can get good at this or anything is with prolonged experience over a long time, with many different iterations of it. And that is what makes people successful over time. It makes people a master over time. Of course, there's been several books out there that talk about the 10,000 hour rule, putting in your 10,000 hours, but that, and probably Frank Engels is getting ready to write a paragraph about it. I understand what you're saying. We're probably talking past each other, but more importantly, there have been studies done out there when if you do want to get to a masterful level of a skill, it usually takes about 10,000 hours. And the thing is that if you get into trading and, you get wrecked your first year and you give up like most people do, of course you're going to become that, a part of that statistic. You're not going to have the iterations to go through in order to do anything really. So it would be like if you're a baby and you're trying to walk and you say after a few times, you fail and you're just like, fuck it, I'm done. This can't be done. I'm out. I'm fucking out. And it's like, well, no shit, you're never going to learn to walk if you stop trying. Of course not. Now, of course, that also brings up the conversation of, having the right sort of iterations. You don't just want to blindly try the same fucking thing over and over again if it doesn't work, obviously. No shit, that's a completely different conversation. But that's why I use the word iterations and not repetitions in a sense, because you want to have multiple different varying experiences with you taking it in a different perspective as well, so that you can grow over time. Of course, otherwise you're just a fucking robot, right? right? But again, different conversation for a different time. More importantly, the big news is, or the big thing with this is that if you let those sorts of people influence you, not only are they destructive to themselves, because they probably already, they probably already given up in a sense, if they are on the more nefarious side, if they're not just trying to make conversation. But what they do is actually something even worse, is that they stop other people from doing stuff that they might be truly successful at. I mean, they stop them before they even really try. So if you don't get in those iterations, of course, you're not going to be good, not just at trading, but at anything. So that's why these people are dangerous, and why I would say if you do find yourself surrounded by that, maybe it's your family, maybe it's your friend, I don't, whatever it might be. Of course, it's probably going to be someone closer to you if you're going to take it at all worth anything, unfortunately. But this is where that saying of surround yourself with you are the average of the 5 people that you hang around with the most. And I strongly believe that, man. If you are surrounded by people who are not where you want to be, you're likely going to end up where they are. There's also a great saying like, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. The thing is that we're so interrelated to each other. We're such social beings that we ping off each other so much that that statement I've found to be quite true. When you get yourself into a crowd that might not be where your vision is, it's probably not going to help too much, because each and every time that you interact with those sorts of people, they're going to be coming at the conversation from a frame which in some way is going to intrinsically kind of veer you off your own path, right? I mean, like, just in the most remedial example, let's say you want to become a professional trader or whatever, man, it doesn't matter. You could literally use that word in spite of like a fucking professional horseback rider, whatever, doesn't matter, skateboarder, whatever the fuck. But you say something like that, and then what happens? What happens? I mean, you're just not even gonna go for it. So of course you're not gonna be successful with that sort of thing. And if the people that you're surrounding yourself, if they're like, hey man, if you're like, hey, I want to be professional Mr. Horseback Rider, and they're like, hey man, I want to go drinking out tonight, or just do whatever, which would take you away from getting more of those repetitions in. I mean, even in that way, it's kind of hurtful in a secondary way. So of course you have to be very protective of kind of who you surround yourself with, because that will greatly influence you in probably a lot of ways that we don't even understand. Again, we are such social beings as just human beings that we ping off each other, and just I don't really know if we fully understand the implications of that. I know that there's like mirror neurons on these inside our brain that actually quite literally make us mimic each other's expressions and postures and breathing rates, which can influence our hormones, which obviously influence our emotions. So by that whole metric, I mean, it can get very Jedi-like. So I would say that that's a huge first the first fork of the attack, if you want to call it that. Or I don't even know if I'm using if I'm even using the expression correctly. The second one, and the second biggest thing, to kind of avoid this statistic, avoid this bullshit when people say 90% of traders fail. It's like, okay, well, of course 90% of people just fail anything. But more importantly, the big thing here is, and this goes for everything as well, and this is one of the biggest pieces of advice that I learned when I was younger, and it always stuck with me, and I always come back and meditate on it, and it always comes to a more profound and deeper meaning. Don't listen to anyone who is not where you want to be. I know it's a little bit of a harsh statement, but here's the thing: if other people are where you want to be, they would then it's worthwhile to listen to them, of course. But if they're not there and they're giving you their opinion on what you should do, on where you want to be, well, they have no skin in the game. They don't even know. They don't have the experience. So how can they know? Now, of course, the way you see one thing is the way you see all things, like Musashi said. No doubt about that, but we're talking about in a more visceral sense, right? In the sense that if people are not where you want to be, how can they know what's best for you? They're not even there themselves, and if they're not there themselves, and they don't have that direct experience, if they don't have that direct experience, then they don't fucking know. So when you get into a conversation like that, and they say, you're 90% of traders fail, and you should give up right now because that's what I did, and look at me. It's like, well, yeah, if you give up, no shit, you're not going to get anywhere. But it always comes back to that fact. If you listen, if you listen to people who are not where you want to be, you're going to likely get the same results as them, right? I mean, you're basically doing the same thing as them. Why would you expect anything different? So again, I understand, especially for younger people out there, you can be heavily influenced by your surroundings. You can be heavily influenced by, your friends or your family who are pretty much just there. Maybe you didn't even consciously choose them. Of course, with your family, you're not going to consciously choose them. You get what I'm saying. But with your friends, right? You might just be on the younger side, and you don't know if these people, you just don't know any better than, with regards to what these people are actually, doing in your life. So I'd really strongly suggest that if you do find yourself in that sort of situation, do an audit of your life, do an audit of your friends. I'm not saying that you should go out of your way and say, hey, you're not where I want to be, so we're not friends anymore. No, of course not. You can be on the path. Of course, you can certainly be on the path. That is just as good, just being on the path as actually being there. There's a lot of camaraderie to be had with that. But when we're talking about long term, you are going to be the average of the 5 people that hang around with the most. So that is one of the things that you really have to consider when you're kind of choosing and cultivating your friend group. Of course, with your family, that's a little bit more blood related, so you can't really just change that. I know that some people, when they're trying to do something different with their life and their family is not really, supportive of it, they will kind of deprioritize them. I've essentially had my own, my own dealings with my own family. Some of them certainly very supportive and amazing. Some of them maybe not the most, but and it's not that you have to have a fight with them. It's just, hey, you just choose not to talk about this kind of stuff with them anymore, because again, it goes back to that first point that we spoke about. When people start saying shit like that, they're not invested in your success, and they're not really invested in your failure either. They're likely just trying to make conversation. And if they are on the more nefarious sense, just trying to dissuade you because maybe they had a bad experience in their past and they think that their experience is going to be your experience and all that bullshit, maybe that, that's a little bit more of a nefarious thing. But again, that comes down to them not being where you want to be, and they just want to drag other people. So that's pretty destructive. That's another conversation for another time. I mean, they're quite literally, giving up on their own dreams and then making other people give up on their dreams as well, because it makes them feel better. It's kind of fucked up. But my point is that, one, surround yourself with people who you want to be like, surround yourself with people who are either on the same path or kind of where you want to be. 2, do not listen to anyone who is not where you want to be. And then 3, if you can, find yourself a mentor. So in this digital age, it's pretty fucking easy to meet just about anyone in the world. Of course, I'm out there. I don't really do mentorship or anything like that. I just don't have the time to really do it. But there's plenty of people out there. And of course, I do have my free content as well where, you can always tune in, but it's not really the same where you have a one-on-one. It would be much better if you could do a one-on-one. So if you can verify someone that, they know what they're talking about, that they've shown you that they can be successful with whatever you want to do. Again, this doesn't just go for trading, but anything really. If they are where you want to be, then that's someone who you really want to get around. And how do you get around someone like that? That's a little bit more of a deeper conversation as well. But what I can say is what I did for, to get around my mentor is that I had some skills that he didn't have himself. And so I basically told him, hey, I'll work for free if you teach me how to trade, and then I'll do all this stuff that you don't know how to do too well, and I'll just take care of that for you. And that's no problem. And then he's like, okay, well, that's valuable for me. And that's completely fine. He didn't pay me for a while, but then, at the end of the day, later on down the road, and, ended up forming a nice relationship. And and I gained I gained a ton off that, which the value can't be put in dollars. It's not just learning the strategies or learning, what to do here and there, but it's learning the mindsets really. And then being around a person like that who's already there and seeing how they think about things versus how someone who's not there and who might be talking in a different direction is thinking about things. It's night and day. And that's where you can really start to separate and understand kind of the destructiveness of hanging around people like that, or getting involved with people like that. And really, Jesus Christ, is it, do we have lightning outside? My God, man. Yep. And there's the thunder. There we go. Nice little lightning and thunder to wrap this talk up. But yeah, to wrap this up, first and foremost, when people say, silly stuff like that, 90% of traders fail, 90% of people fail because they don't try. And that's really fucking sad, man. It's really fucking sad because realistically, the reason why those people probably don't try is because they're conditioned or they kind of fell into the trap of listening to someone else who's just not where they want to be, and they gave up too early. That's probably what happens, unfortunately. And then you can go through your whole fucking life without doing anything ever just because you failed once. Of course, you're gonna fucking fail on this path. You're gonna fucking. I've failed many times. I've failed many fucking times, man. But those failures have actually ended up being the best experiences for me. And when it's happening in the moment, doesn't feel all that good, to be fair. But coming back to it later on, incredibly useful in stuff that I still use for reference, and I still feel like I learned stuff, things from very, very important things. So that'd be the first thing. Of course, second thing, surround yourself with people who are where you want to be. And of course, don't listen to people who are not where you want to be. And then third and final, if you can, find yourself a mentor, whether it's in person, whether it's online, especially in this day and age, it's a little bit more easy to do things online. Just someone that you can consult with who is where you want to be, who's actually done it and can prove it. And that's going to be an invaluable resource. If you can do that, you're unlikely to fall apart of any sort of statistic, just because that's not going to apply to you. If you actually try at something, if you actually put in the iterations, if you put in the time to learn something, you're likely going to do it. It's just a matter of time, really. A matter of time and iterations, and that's what I'll leave you with right now. So I want to wrap this talk up. I want to wish you well on this nice little Saturday as well. I'll be back on soon, and perhaps uploading some more videos to this playlist. So take care and see you soon.